That right there was absolutely amazing. I mean, I'll be the first one to say that DC's Legend of Tomorrow has definitely gone downhill quite a bit in quality in recent seasons. I mean, season 7, we're 7 seasons in, and already with this 7th season, I'm already not that interested in it. I'm not that into it. But this episode was amazing. It was just such a good episode, not only for nostalgia purposes, just, it really brought me back to early seasons of Legends when this show was so good, when it really was a superhero show that just so happened to be superheroes traveling through time, getting to see all these characters return. And this is, of course, the 100th episode, so that's why they did all that. But on top of all that crazy cool stuff, I love how they even, the stars of this episode were so good, because the stars of this episode are Gideon, Astra, and Spooner, which, usually I'm not the biggest fans of Astra and Spooner, but in this episode, they finally get their moment to shine. I think the biggest reason I'm not really a fan of them is because we don't really get to spend much time with them. Sure, throughout this whole season so far, I mean, we're only 3 episodes in now, it's just been those two, and they've been a couple and just hanging out and doing their own stuff and having their own separate storyline. But this episode really gave them the chance to have their moment in the spotlight, and I really, really enjoyed seeing that. I really enjoyed seeing them take center focus, way more than I thought I would, but I really like that because there's some underrated characters, so I enjoyed seeing them get a little bit more fleshed out here in this episode. And same goes for Gideon. She's been a character that's been on the show since episode 1, and now this really was her episode. This really was her induction to the Legends, because again, she's been there since the beginning, but she was just the AI computer. Now she's officially a Legend of Tomorrow. And like I said, guys, this is the 100th episode of DC's Legend of Tomorrow. So if you haven't seen this already, I mean, you need to. Whether you're a fan of Legends of Tomorrow, recent seasons or not, if you watched the beginning of this show, then you need to watch this 100th episode. Just for that, just to see these characters return. It is so good. It is just so much fun. There's so many cool references. I just had an absolute blast with this episode, and really kind of makes me sad that next week we're jumping right back into same old season 7 that I'm not really excited for. But anyways, spoiler warning if you've not yet seen this episode, because it is amazing, and we are going to be talking about everything that went down here, and of course all the references, all the characters return, and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so we start off this episode following up after, of course, last week's episode, episode 2 of season 7, where now all of a sudden Gideon is a human, and at the end of the last episode they basically unlocked her ability to speak, so now she's up and speaking and talking to Astra and Spooner, but now all of a sudden something is going wrong with her, and they're not sure what's going on, but they need a way to fix it. So Astra casts a spell so that she and Spooner can then go inside of Gideon's mind. And when they first get in there, it's on a very much Wave Rider-like set, except when you look out into space, it's not the time stream. It's actually more like code. It's kind of like a whole Matrix thing going on here. You just see all these different pieces of digital stuff that's going on there, because again, she is a robot, she is an AI, so of course that's what's going on there. But then, out of the door walks Jax. Jefferson Jackson, one half of Firestorm, makes his return right here at the beginning of this episode. I love how he's kind of like the maintenance man of Gideon, because pretty much the whole time he was on the show, he was basically the guy that was off repairing Gideon all the time. So I love seeing that. And another thing I loved is how he had the British accent, because that was something I was confused about when I saw the promo for this week's episode, and it showed him talking with the accent, and I was like, what is going on there? Because I know that the actor who plays him in real life has an accent, and he did an American accent for the show, so I was wondering why does he have the accent on the show? Well, basically it's explained that that's kind of for some reason the way that Gideon remembers him. I don't really know exactly why, but I thought it was pretty cool and pretty funny, because we do get to see scenes with him doing the regular American accent, but or English accent, this is something like that. So yeah, that was awesome to see. Just seeing this character return. He was one of my favorite characters, so I loved seeing him back here, especially in this role for the episode, kind of like our guide through the quest to get Gideon back. So then that's when we get our intro for the episode, which again is also different because this is a special intro for this episode where it kind of flashes basically all the different logos that this show has had throughout the past 7 seasons. You start with the original one, which gives me some huge nostalgic flashbacks when they would bring in like the separate logos of each character, then it would form the Legends of Tomorrow logo, going up to like the season where we started tapping into the supernatural stuff and it was like all red and had the ritual stuff around it, all the way into last season with like the blue and red logo, and now this season with the 1920s logo. So that was just something that I thought was really, really cool. A nice idea, a nice touch that I enjoyed seeing added here. So anyway, Jax fills us in on what they need to do. What do Astra and Spooner need to do to save Gideon? Well, they need to access her memories to basically remind her of who she is, because at this point in time she's still unconscious, and if they wake her up then she will be basically reset Gideon and will not have any of her personality or memories. So they need to access her memories. Only one is available at this point in time. So they go to it. They go to their first memory number 1, which is about a year ago, the night that they first kidnapped Spooner. And you have this great conversation between Gideon and Ava and about what it means to love and all that stuff. So that was nice seeing, and basically gives Gideon back that key memory. So then Gideon wakes up inside of her Matrix subconscious thing, and then she goes along with Astra and Spooner throughout the rest of the memories. So then we get the return of some characters. So we go to memory number 2, where we get to see Ray Palmer, we get to see Snart, we see Hawkman, and Sarah, specifically in her white canary suit, which we haven't seen her wear in like the longest time. And then we go to memory 3, where we get the return of Martin Stein, and he's just all super happy here, humming along, just having a great morning because he just found out that he's a grandfather. Great reference there. And then you get to see Jax mentioning Gorilla Grodd, another great reference back to, I think, season 3. So that was nice to see. And then I love this. It was a great moment because it almost kind of gives you this episode like a behind the scenes of like things you like didn't get to see on the show that were happening behind the scenes here. So you get to see like Gideon and Stein having this moment where they're singing together, and that's of course a great reference to actually Victor Garber, who plays Martin Stein, because in real life he's like he's an actual singer and he's like on Broadway and stuff like that. I don't know if he still does that, but that is one of the reasons that he left the show, is because, you know, so we could do more Broadway stuff. So I love seeing that integrated into this episode. That was amazing. But unfortunately, our team is attacked by a virus. So now they need to explore the different memories and basically shoot anyone that acts different, because that is then the virus trying to interfere and try to mess up the memories and, you know, mess up Gideon and all that stuff. So we go to memory number 4, where we have Rip Hunter making his return. So glad to see him back here, and he actually had a really important role here towards the end. We'll talk about that when we get there. So we got Rip, we got Hawkman, we got Ray, we got Snart, and also we do technically have Rory here, aka Heatwave, except it's just a body double laying on the ground, and they're like, oh, he's just sleeping. Would have been awesome if we could have got Dominic Purcell back for this episode. Just, you know, we know the circumstances. He had a fallout with the people working behind the scenes on the show. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I did a video on this a couple months ago. But yeah, so would have been nice to see him back, but at least they referenced him a couple times, so that was pretty cool. And then, actually, we do see that one of these characters turns out to be the virus in disguise, which is Rip, and so he ends up trapping Gideon and tricking her. So she then goes on to, at least the virus, goes on to show Gideon basically all these horrific moments from the past of Legends of Tomorrow. And, you know, this is something I loved how they integrated here, because you see this, they do this all the time on shows for, you know, milestone episodes like this, or even like finales or like final seasons or something like that, where they'll just play clips from past seasons. But I love how they integrate it here in an actual meaningful way, and it was actually really cool to see here. Like, we get to replay the death of Bayrod, the death of Rip Hunter, the death of Martin Stein, we got the death of Snart, and just all of these painful and traumatic memories. It was just so, I mean, obviously emotional and painful to watch all over again, but again, just some great references that I love seeing here. But meanwhile, the memories turn against Spooner and Astra, so then they need to fight them. We got a great Beebo cameo right up in here, where Astra and Spooner are trying to save the memories, so they're shooting them and basically restoring these memories. And at one point, you do see a little Beebo doll pop up, and Astra uses it as a weapon. And I love that because, you know, what I think maybe like 5-10 minutes into this episode, when I was thinking about like, ooh, what could we possibly see here other than all the officially confirmed stuff for this episode, and I realized, wait, they need to have some sort of Beebo cameo in here, and luckily they did. It was brief, but they still had it in here, so we got some Beebo action. I love seeing that. And then what I loved even more is the Legends holiday party, because, you know, they live in the temporal zone. They live on Time Machine in the temporal zone, in the time stream, so time works, well, it's not even in time at that moment, so they don't really have like a calendar. This isn't something I ever really thought about to celebrate like specific holidays, so I love how they have this one party to celebrate all the holidays at once. So you see they're celebrating Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween. There was a birthday cake there. They had little gingerbread versions of the Legends. That was awesome to see. Again, getting to see those like behind the scenes moments that you don't get to see in these daily lives of the Legends on the Wave Rider. It was really awesome to see it here. I love seeing it. And by the end of the episode, of course, they're able to defeat the virus, except instead of killing the virus, Gideon actually decides that she wants to coexist with the virus and basically learn to process that other darker side of her consciousness. So then this right here is when we get this great moment that is this great ending, great full circle moment where we have Gideon walking through the hallway of the Wave Rider, and you see every single legend, past and present. Well, not every single legend, but all the legends that we saw pop up in this episode. Of course, you know, legends in broad. Like I said, there's a few members missing, like we don't get to see Rory, we don't get to see Vixen or Hawkgirl. We do have Hawkman. Also, Nora Dark was here too. It was just really awesome to see. So you got all these legends here basically welcoming her and basically making Gideon unofficial legend, which again was just such a great moment in this episode. And this really was Gideon's episode, but you had all this other cool stuff thrown in here on top of it, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And then after this, Gideon wakes up in Texas with Astra and Spooner, and we get back to our main season 7 timeline. But the ending of the episode was weird because this is something that we've actually had sprinkled throughout a couple scenes in this episode, which I thought was going to just be something for this episode just because, oh, it's the 100th episode, we're going to get the return of this character. But no, it's something in season 7. And that, of course, is the return of Bishop, the main villain from season 6. So we start off this episode, it's one of the first scenes of the episode where we have Bishop working with assistant Ava, but then he keeps seeing like these visions and actual memories, except he hasn't actually experienced them. So this is a past version of Bishop, of his aliens in the future, the Zagorons and all that stuff, that invasion. And then later on in the episode, he is able to access and unlock Gideon and learns about the legends and the Zagorons and all that stuff. And it's then at the end of the episode, the final scene of this episode is Bishop officially resetting Gideon. So now he has his own copy of Gideon that is now reset without her memories, without her personality. And I mean, we got a great glimpse of that in this episode, of that darker side, the virus of Gideon. And now we're going to be seeing that in full-fledged power, which is going to be interesting. And just the whole thing that we're getting the return of Bishop, like again, when that first happened in this episode, I thought it was just going to be for this episode, but seems like he's actually going to be a pretty big role in this season, which, you know, I'm not complaining about, but at the same time, I would like a new villain, but also, like, you know, he wasn't that bad of a character, and it is kind of cool to see that he's returning. So maybe he's the one that was responsible for that robot Hoover at the end of last episode. I don't really know for sure, but maybe he's going to be the main villain of this season too. We don't really know. We'll kind of have to wait and see, but I'd say I'm excited because this episode was so good, and I'm excited to see where things go. Things were set up really nicely. But again, we're getting back to regular DC's London Tomorrow season 7 next week with the whole 1920 stuff, which isn't that bad. I mean, it's better than some of the recent stuff we got last season, but also at the same time, like, I miss the old days of Legends. So this was really a great episode. Such an amazing episode. I loved it so much. But anyways, guys, that is the end. the 100th episode of DC's Legends Tomorrow. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about this episode? What were your favorite parts? What did you like? What did you not like? And what do you think will happen in the remainder of DC's Legends Tomorrow Season 7? So anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.